Hello and welcome back to Space Engineers. In today's video, we're looking at another land vehicle, but this time this is a extremely strange one, where the cockpit moves independently of the wheels or the chassis of the vehicle, allowing it to basically form itself to the terrain around you while keeping you in the cockpit upright and perfectly straight. So this thing, if you have not seen it already, it's called the Desert Strider, which is this lovely thing over here. And for a quick demonstration of what I mean by the whole wheel system and how it can adapt, you can press number 2 on the ship's controls, or the vehicle's controls, and as you can see, the cockpit stays perfectly upright, but then the rest of the vehicle will just fold round and round and around, and you can just keep doing this, or turn it off and have it automatically adapt to your surroundings as you drive it around. Grabbing hold of my character, now moving this forward, the parking brake turned off, in first person view, keeping an eye on the actual body of the vehicle, as it was going around this perfectly flat terrain which should not be perfectly flat. I want to have lumpy and bumpy, here we go, so my cockpit is staying perfectly straight, and the whole body is adapting to its surrounding. It makes it very silky, very smooth to drive around, and it's incredibly odd and would be perfect for an actual race course. Due to the way the whole cockpit's been set up, you can keep a perfect view on what's going on. So in third person view, just looking at it like so, you can see how the cockpit is changing compared to the body. In fact, that's a much better example of what's going on with the body. And yes, for some odd reason, I found a perfectly flat area on this planet, in the one time I don't want a flat area. I would love to have this in a previous video, but hey-hoo, can't really do anything about that. There we go, that's another perfect example, and we'll just come to a stop right here. So yes, the only issue with this vehicle that I can really mention right now is it doesn't quite sit still to the way it has been set up. As you can see right here with the parking brake turned on a roughly flat surface, we are still moving at about 0.2 meters per second, so it will wander off by itself. So if you want to have this in survival mode, if you do want to have it, and it will have to be spawned into the subgrids, you'll need to lock it down with magnetic plates or a connection system. Anyway, for the actual vehicle itself, in the F10 menu, finding the Desert Strider, this thing is 246 small blocks, using no DLC packs and no mods. It was created for the Advent calendar last year, and it does have a fair amount of information about it, including its full-on specifications, its block count PCU, length, width and height. And when you see it can go on the planet, it can go on the moon, but it's not suggested. And in space, of course, you can't actually use it without thrusters. So giving this the thumbs up, which I already have, I'm going to cut back in just a moment to make sure this vehicle is perfectly still on the ground, because otherwise it's just going to wander off as we have a quick look around the outside. So here we go, what I've done is just slapped on a magnetic plate onto the front of this, onto a steel block. That should keep it nicely in place while we go around the outside, but we'll just have to ignore it as we were to go around the outside because it will clip through the camera. Anyway, for the very front of the Desert Strider, this is what we get, where right in the middle we've got ourselves a singular rocket launcher to blast your enemies with, so you can shoot and scoot with this vehicle if you want to do that. Above there is a light to light up the darkness, below the rocket launcher is a gyroscope which is much needed for this thing to actually function. Then to the left and right of that, we've got some blast edge blocks, which I suppose could be acting as a bump guard. We move around onto the side like so, we see how wheels have been set up and how they've been protected up on the side there by a couple of steel blocks and some armoured panels. Then as we're to come around onto the side here, here's our lovely large wheels, and then this is what we get for the side of the vehicle. So we've got some white, we've got some black, we've got some grey, and yellow blocks, including a couple unfinished blocks, just for a bit of decoration. We also have a very much needed warning sign telling you to not stand in this area, because if it starts to flip around, it's going to be a little bit painful for your head. Anyway, getting a bit closer here, we've got a small wheel. This is one of 4 small wheels that appear on this vehicle, with the other 2 being attached onto our cockpit right there. I'm not too sure why these are on the vehicle, but they're probably there for a very good reason, so I'm just going to skip past it. Yes, onto this part we see even more unfinished steel blocks, and a whole lot of stuff going on. Anyway, coming around towards the back of the vehicle, we'll come back to the top in just a moment. So we've got ourselves another gyroscope, but this time this one is turned off. We've got a couple more steel blocks dotted around there for some additional decoration, and there are our rear suspensions for our wheels to attach onto. Moving all the way up looking down, there's another warning sign, there's some more yellow steel blocks, there's some more blaster edge blocks, there's a piston cap, and then over to this part on the middle, then we've got our standard cockpit to drive it around, we've got our small wheels on the left and right hand side, a gyroscope at the back of the cockpit, and then behind that to attach onto the vehicle, the only attach point for the cockpit is this small rotor right here, which is how the whole system, how the whole functionality of the cockpit moving independently of the wheels is going to be functioning. Anyway, moving towards the front there's a couple half steel blocks for the front, there's the back of our rocket launcher, and there's the very front where the rocket launcher sticks out, and where it's been attached onto those steel blocks. Moving all the way down underneath this thing, here we go, so there's that gyroscope from the front. Then the only real point of interest underneath this vehicle are the two space balls, gyroscope in the middle on our cockpit, then our programmable block, which is how this whole system is going to be properly functioning. This script, as far as I'm aware, is how the cockpit is going to be staying perfectly balanced, how it's going to be aligning itself to the planetary gravity, and not changing with the vehicle as you were to flip it around or go on uneven terrain. Anyway, towards the back there, another warning label, just in case this side is the side that's facing upwards. There's the steel blocks at the back there, just adding in some decoration. And there we go, that's it for the outside of the Desert Strider, and it's great with how it's all been set up. Grabbing hold of my character, and disconnecting this, removing that from the front there, getting into the cockpit, it's now going to start to wander away by itself. Yes, for the actual controls of this vehicle, just turning around slightly, being very careful not to wobble the cockpit too much. So if you go too far, there's not enough clearance between the top of the cockpit and the ground, so it will damage itself and potentially blow up the cockpit. Yes, I do need to actually turn this thing around before I fire the rocket launchers. Okay, and that should do quite nicely. So pressing number 1, this is for our rocket launcher, our singular weapon to blast your enemies with in a shoot and scoot style. Number 2 is then for your flipping system, where we can just press that, and now the wheels will spin all the way around after a short delay, and we'll start to do that. And yes, you can drive this thing forwards if you want to while doing that. It looks very menacing as you want to approach your enemies, like asserting dominance over them, that you don't really care what's going to happen to yourself. Yes, you just toggle it again to turn it off. It doesn't matter which way up the wheels are, they both function exactly the same. And if you don't want it to actually flip, if you don't want it to alter to your surroundings, you then press number 3, which will then lock the rotor in place, and now it drives around like a proper vehicle. So there we go. Anyway, turning that off, press number 4, that's for your interior lights at the front of the ship or front of the vehicle to turn it on and off. Number 5 is then for your spaceballs to turn it on and off, but I can't really tell the difference between having it on or off, so you might have to experiment with that yourself. Number 6 is then for your batteries to auto recharge, and no, I am not driving this currently, it's doing it all by itself. And number 9 is my wave animation that I added myself. Over to tab number 2, 3 and 4, we've got nothing else, and checking number 9, because there was a design recently that had some controls sneakily on number 9. So it's time to properly drive this thing around and go at some really high speeds. But first of all, slamming on the brakes, there we go, I want to rotate it one more time to make sure that the proper side is facing up. There we go. Now it's time to hold forwards and go up to our maximum speed to see how it handles. So what we're going to do is do this in first person view first of all, because I have full confidence that we're on a perfectly flat surface. And here we go. So now just above 50 meters per second, 54, 55, it's taking quite some time to go up to about 60. In fact, it might be locked at 50. Might have to go into the wheels and actually change it. I can't actually see what's going on here. So presume we did a massive jump. Yes, we did. That has gone horribly wrong, and I should have been paying more attention to my surroundings. So here we go once again. I've got up to about 50 meters per second, which does seem to be about the speed limit of the vehicle. Whether that's a wheel restriction or not, I'll have to check in just a moment. But it does seem to be perfectly safe if you are paying attention and not just randomly jumping this over every little sand dune. Anyway, coming to a stop, like so. Hopefully it won't damage itself here. There we go. Putting on the parking brakes, first person view, pressing I, coming to the control panel, and finding the wheels. Here we go. And yes, it does have a speed limit of 210 kilometers an hour. Let's go to unlimited, onto the parking brake, and drive this thing forwards and see how fast we can get before it actually has a few problems. Yes, other than that, it's very self-explanatory what it does. It's a very nifty vehicle and a very fun vehicle to drive due to the way the wheels have been altering themselves to the surrounding areas while keeping the cockpit perfectly upright and perfectly straight. It allows you in a first person view to see clearly what's going on surrounding you. And there we go, that's a perfect example of our wheels just going a bit wibbly wobbly. As we do a jump, I want to actually steer clear of this area very carefully now. Here we go. We have to be a little bit careful while turning this thing, which I did forget to mention, due to the way the cockpit can easily flip down and underneath the vehicle and damage itself. That looks a bit dodgy, looks like we survived without damaging anything, and off we go once again. Yes, we're now going to go all the way up, that's 60 meters per second, third person view, look at it wobble around, look how stable that cockpit is, and it seems like we can't really go above 60 meters per second with this wheel setup. Even though I set it to unlimited, it really does not want to go much further than the actual set speed limit the creator put on there, which is very nice stuff. That looks very dodgy, that looks very dangerous. We lost a few stuff from underneath the vehicle, but we're still drivable, and it still seems to be perfectly fine and functional with how the system has been set up. But anyway, that's pretty much it for the Desert Strider and all it has to offer. It's a fantastic little vehicle to play around with in, well, I'll say creator mode or survival mode, but bearing in mind you would have to spawn this in survival mode due to the way it's all been set up, or of course manually build up the cockpit from the surrounding chassis. Yes, I'll be linked to it description below to reach that and play around yourself. Highly recommend you do, as well as the mod I'm using to remove the atmosphere from planet Pertam, which is why this planet is so crystal clear, and why you can basically see the skybox on the planet's surface. Yes, like I said, there'll be linked to it description below. I'll be back with another video some point soon. Bye bye.